I didn't open the program. Just hold on. We'll get going here in a second. I got to open Audacity and start it recording. As soon as that thing stops playing, we can start. Too many things going on. I forgot what I was doing. Stop anytime. I didn't realize I recorded this much music. All right, here we go.
Spielman Hooley Tap and Life podcast.
Maybe they'll get some answers Saturday morning at 11 o'clock in the rotunda of Ohio Stadium. Ohio State's parents will be there to protest. Probably a lot of fans will be there to protest. Will the COVID police be there to make sure they're socially distant and masked up?
I don't know anymore.
Somewhere last night at the soccer game I attended, there was a COVID officer. That's how it works in Ohio high school sports. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday edition Spielman Hooley We Tackle Live podcast. Every school, every event has a COVID officer, and they prowl the grounds, make sure everybody's compliant. I was compliant last night. Might have seen photographic evidence of that on Twitter.
I actually liked your Twitter feed, and I was envious of you last night.
It was fun to be at a game. I can't say that I enjoyed it as much as I would have without a mask. It was hot, and a mask makes it hotter.
Did you take a break from your mask at all?
I took a break just to lift it momentarily to drink water. You're allowed to take your own
COVID
water.
Officer?
No, he didn't say anything to me. My daughter is the sort of the first line of COVID officer defense. She told me that part of the penalty is that if the COVID officer sees you without your mask when you get out of the car or at the game, that officer can call the game right there and call a forfeit.
Wow. It just fascinates me.
So I wonder, okay, Massillon and McKinley playing high school football.
Right.
Massillon, of course, in front, leading fourth quarter. What's to stop a McKinley fan from going over to the Massillon side and taking off their mask?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's very well could happen. I look at it and I appreciate everybody doing everything they can so that our kids, at the very least, since all our universities, or except UC and I think Youngstown.
Yeah. Oh no, Youngstown canceled.
Yeah,
they canceled.
Well, I think they're going to be able to play in the spring.
Okay.
Which again, we talked about the FCS is important for them, and I'm talking about all fall sports. So because we're going to talk here in a second about Ohio State and the hit they're going to take financially.
Big.
But for me, I appreciate everybody's efforts to at least allow these kids to play, because it's not about, even though it's a parent, it's not about your enjoyment.
Right.
It's about the experience that the kids get to have. It's about the lessons that sports teach, and to deny them that opportunity is sinister. And I said sinister because I am of the firm belief, and nobody will ever be able to convince me any differently because of evidence in data, which is in science, that sports are just as important, in some cases more important, as lessons taught in the classroom. We learn how to deal with real life issues, real life problems, socially, on a practice field or in a game.
Mhm.
You learn how to fail and fail and fail, then you learn how to overcome and achieve. And so it's a small sacrifice, although it's inconvenient and it's a pain in the rear end. At least we're doing our best to allow the kids to play. So I was thinking about this and what it means to sacrifice.
Mhm.
And I think overall, I don't care what anybody says, the data says it. The goal was to flatten the curve. The goal was not to overwhelm the healthcare system, and so we did that, Ohio, and I think it's great now.
Pretty much everybody did
yeah,
that.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I think that people are so indebted and afraid of ramifications, whether it be litigation against you, that they're being overcautious, and hopefully we can continue to make our way out of the stringent rules and continue slowly to get back to normal. And it was interesting. I looked at your Twitter last night, liked your photo of you with the mask, proving to all those naysayers out there that think you're a rebel and you don't wear a mask, which, it's been proven, and your word is your word. Anybody that knows anything about Bruce Hooley, the one thing you can know about him, he's not a liar. He's telling you he's wearing a mask. He's wearing a mask. And the other thing was that driving out here to the hinterlands, something I thought I'd never be pleased to be stopped behind was a school bus.
Oh,
So, I mean, those are little
That's
things.
great.
I said
Little
the last
things.
time I saw a school bus was at the beginning of March
yeah.
on the road. So I'm just glad that you got to have some experience. It's not what we all want, but, unfortunately, the powers that be right now get to make the rules, and we have to follow the rules because both you and I, although we may disagree with some of the rules, it doesn't matter. We still follow the rules.
Absolutely. And, in terms from a player perspective last night, what I noticed different, they sit the kids, they have chairs 6 feet apart on the sideline. Players come to the sideline, they wear masks. They don't greet each other like after the game. Usually there's the players shake hands or something like that. They came within 20, 30, maybe 20 yards of each other and waved to each other. It was a good game sportsmanship wise. My daughter's team won the game 4-0. She played really well, and was fun to get back to some degree of normalcy. And, what I wondered about, were they going to play the national anthem? And they did. They did play the national anthem. But I think that's a league decision because I thought it wasn't when it normally was.
Right.
They don't. Oh, but one of the things they don't do, they don't introduce the players and have them run out to the field and stand next to each other. They get in position to play the game, and then they introduce them from their positions. So they're doing their best to accommodate normalcy with some adjustments to it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cover a high school football game Friday night.
Nice.
I'll see.
Going back to your roots.
Come back to my roots.
I love it.
Yeah.
Are you excited about that?
I am kind of excited.
Yeah,
about
good.
it. Yeah,
Good.
I'm
Which
excited.
game is it?
It's Troy Christian against Dayton Christian
Okay.
in Miamisburg.
Good thing is the Christians are going to win.
Christians are going to win. That's right. The Lions are not going to win. The Christians will win on Friday night. So, I'm covering a guy that used to coach at Troy High School. He's coached 30-some years there and then retired. And so I'm kind of doing, his comeback to coaching, although he coached Troy Christian after he coached at Troy. But he's taken a 3-year lapse, and now he's back. And it's in his blood. And as I said last week, I got the chance to visit some high school football practices. And this is true of tennis practices, soccer practices, whatever. You just see the passion that the coaches have for it. And you see the kids just so glad to get back out there and compete.
See the video up there?
Yes, I do.
Can you fix that?
What's wrong?
Chris Spielman and Bruce Hooley, where you're.
I put you first.
Well, I get that, but it doesn't match up with the picture. Do you see that?
Oh, well, okay, sure. I can change that if you want.
Well, it's really annoying to me.
All right, well, let me double.
I don't want to be mistaken.
I thought if I did it. Okay, very good. I thought if I did it this way.
I don't deserve. First of all, I'm not a 2-time state champion, so I don't want to take.
2-time All-American.
Well, it doesn't matter.
4-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
What else? Who's counting?
Yeah, I was going. Well, if we're going there,
let's go there.
Lombardi Trophy.
There you go. Exactly. One time. What happened your junior year?
I had an off year. What do you want me to tell
Here, you want me to do it this way?
Well, we can fix it next broadcast.
No, we'll do it this way. See that?
I
See Bruce Hooley and Bruce
yeah, of course. 1, 2, 3, me. It's always been that way with this show. Just remember, Bruce, what kind of show is it when I'm here?
Oh, bigger show. Much bigger show. Much bigger show. Yeah, we'll get that off of there. Oh, funny. So,
but how are the? But here's the thing. So, you posed an interesting question on Twitter, and I wonder what the Twitter. I mean, what is the guy? COVID.
He's a COVID officer.
COVID officer,
and I'm not clear who hires him. I can't imagine the state's involved in that. There are too many athletic
Probably
contests.
is.
I believe it's the home school who's
Okay.
responsible for having a COVID officer patrol the
What
stands.
an awful job.
I think, the thing about it is we've seen this. Whenever you give somebody authority, there will be hopefully few who will abuse the authority. I can't imagine calling a forfeit, unless a person's just intractable. And, no, I'm not going to wear my mask. But if you're at the game, you're there for someone to watch someone. And like my daughter said, Dad, look, wear your mask as soon as you get out of your car. You don't want to embarrass your kid. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the person that, causes a ruckus. So, yeah.
Is there plenty of spacing for parents?
Plenty. At a soccer game, it's not a problem. Like, for instance, there were no parents from Madison Plains on the opposing stands.
Yeah.
And then there were people like cheering at times that the home team wouldn't cheer. And I was like, what's the deal with that? Well, they were all congregated on one sideline, which I thought was weird in one set of bleachers. Like, wouldn't we be more distant if their parents went over there? But whatever, it's fine. So, I think from now on, at least at Jonathan Alder, and I would presume at most schools, you're going to buy your tickets online so they can control exactly how many people get in.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's doing everything, and I really believe, it's not the athletic department's decision. It's not the coach's decision. They're doing what they're told to do, and there's probably some of them are swallowing a bitter pill.
Well, I talked to a football coach in Western
Well, I just
Ohio.
wanted to make this one point. They're just because they want the opportunity for the kids to play, because they understand the importance of sport and extracurricular activities as part of the total education of the child, and that's got to be number one priority.
Absolutely, no doubt. But at your smaller schools, the athletic director kind of is a one-man band. He has a lot to do. I talked to a football coach in Western Ohio last week who said his AD didn't want to deal with the headache of dispersing the 150 tickets that he has available for a football game based upon their size of the bleachers. He put the football coach in charge of it. He's like, here's 150 tickets for your parents. You disperse them. And the football coach is like, I don't want to be the one to disperse the tickets, because, what do you do if you have parents who are divorced and one's remarried, and you give them 2 tickets? I said, yeah, just give them to the kid. Give each kid
There's your tickets.
X number of tickets. You give them out to who you want.
Yeah.
So there can be some ticklish situations. Hopefully people have patience with it and it'll all work out. All right, to the number one story for us today. Ohio State projects a $130 million athletic revenue decline for 2021 due to the cancellation of fall sports. $130 million. So as far as I know, they're still planning on playing in the spring.
It ain't happening, people.
You don't think they're going to play at all?
No shot. No.
Wow, not even like. See,
I hope
Nick
I'm wrong.
Saban made the point this week that a spring season will be, his term was a JV season. Now, Nick Saban has a lot to gain from that comment. He's in the SEC. He can use that as a wedge against the Big Ten. So
doesn't mean it's not true.
Doesn't mean it's not true. If the Chris Olave's, Josh Myers, Wyatt Davis, Justin Fields, on and on, Sean Wade's don't play in the spring, I said I think it'll be normal spring football with a higher profile. Maybe a cut above normal spring football, because you'll have some Baron Brownings and some Pete Werners who'll play. Guys who haven't solidified their draft position yet, but not everybody's.
The problem is they're going to miss the combine. They're going to miss workouts. They're going to miss interviews.
Well, they moved the combine.
You can't serve, but
still
you can't serve 2 masters. I mean, I was having a discussion with a friend about this. Somebody who's very bright and very innovative, and is a really good thinker. Is a guy that I used to work with at ESPN, and he was on the production side. We have very good conversations. It's interesting as I talk about politically, we're totally different, actually different religions. But it's just we have just great conversations because we're civil and we talk to each other and not over each other, and we bounce ideas off each other all the time. And he was talking about, well, can't they just take a week off, like have a bye week, and everybody go prepare for the NFL? Well, that's not, to me, that's not fair to the kid because he might be beat up from playing in a game. Right. Or it's not fair, I think, to the Ohio State as a team. It's not fair to your teammates that your focus is not on the team. Your focus is on my future, my individual future. So we kind of came into agreement. Oh, yeah, that probably wouldn't work. So I don't see it happening. I think we talked about this a little bit on Monday. You asked me what I think the interest level would be, and I put a percentage on it, and that percentage was probably about 50% interested. I know that I wouldn't be as interested. I would follow it, of course. If I wasn't doing anything else, I'd probably watch it, but it just doesn't mean as much because you're really not playing for anything. You're not, and you can say that you are.
Yeah, if the other three leagues have played,
and I don't see what's going to change in 3 months. Besides an election, I don't see what is going to change. Because I keep hearing this, and I agree with this, that the virus is probably going to be here. So we all just have to learn to live with it. The most disappointing thing for me when I look at this, Bruce, is Ohio State or the Big Ten. I don't want to say Ohio State. I want to say the Big Ten. And I understand Ohio State's wanting to stay solidified with the Big Ten. I'm not a proponent of, well, screw the Big Ten, let's go to the SEC. I just don't. I think that's a rash decision and one that you'd probably regret in the long run. I just don't understand what the hurry was. That's where my suspicions rise. You didn't even give it a shot. I get why the MAC had to do it, because the Power Five cut the throat of the MAC by denying them $11 million. Okay, I get why the MAC did it. But why did in the Pac-12, they do their own thing? They're basically irrelevant anyway. Maybe one or two teams that have interest out there. But why the Big Ten did this, I need to know why, because it makes no sense. No sense. Were you trying to? Did you have the ego? And believe me, I've been guilty of putting my ego ahead of other things. Did you actually think that we're the mighty Big Ten and we're leading and everybody will follow us?
I think there was some of that, yeah. I really
Which
do.
is so arrogant and a huge mistake. And we've already seen the personal problems this creates with Iowa cutting 4 sports, killing the opportunities of the total educational experience of student athletes. And we already saw Nebraska chop or furlough 51 people, real jobs and real people. For what? For trying to make a statement of look how woke, or what is the term where you, I'm not woke.
Idealistic.
Look how idealistic we are. Yeah. Look what kind of leaders we are. When this is changing daily and the news seems to get, in my opinion, better and better each day.
Yeah. Here's an email. Spielman Hooley podcast, gmail.com from Joe in Wasion. Says, I talked to my doctor today.
Is that in Ohio, by the way?
Wasion is right up, tucked up in the corner of Ohio. Yes, it is. I believe northwest corner. Talked to my doctor today about COVID-19 to get a professional opinion. He said it's confusing and they're getting more data every day. What I want to point out is we talked about younger people and being safe at school. He stopped me right away and said he has a doctor friend who has a college-age child who has COVID and now has 50% heart function, no use of his left arm. I'm getting tired of the same thing every episode. You guys yelling, what are we doing? I would say they're doing the best they can with the information they have. I do enjoy your show. I'm just tired of all the COVID discussion.
So am I, Joe.
We're tired of it too. The problem is it's interwoven with everything, because when we talk about Ohio State and their projected $130 million shortfall, it's because of COVID, because they don't have fall sports. They don't have the ability to sell tickets. It's Clemson furloughing hundreds of employees September 1st to the end of the year, half of their workforce, of their athletic department workforce. If you make $400,000 or more, you got to take 12 days off. I mean, I would imagine most people react to that and say, well, if I made 400 grand, I could afford to take 12 days off. 10% pay cuts for those above 400K. So Dabo Sweeney's going to take a big cut. There's no news yet out of Ohio State about taking huge cuts. Purdue, Jeff Brom, Matt Painter, their AD, taking a 20% cut. So, I mean, I know they get it. They make a lot of money. I'm just saying that the people that are making $60,000 have to take a week off, and that hurts when you got to take a week off. You're making $60,000. So it's interwoven with everything. We're trying to find a balance.
Yeah.
The NFL is playing. That's the good thing. The Blue Jackets did play, and there's one note on that. John Tortorella's quick exit from his post-game press conference after the Blue Jackets game 5 loss to Tampa has earned him a $25,000 fine. What's a coach's? I'm not a fan of John Tortorella's condescending, abrupt post-game manner and his refusal to answer questions about things fans care about. Like the power play a couple years ago. Power play stinks. You're the coach of the team. The power play is keeping you from winning. Fans are buying tickets. I think it's a reasonable inquiry to make. Why does your power play
I'm going to
stink?
get to that. I'm going to address that email.
Okay.
I go back to say, and he asked me, what are we doing? I get that there's bad things that can happen. All right. But the fallout of the majority of people, the majority of college kids are going to be okay if they get COVID. That's been proven over and over, and the numbers don't lie. You know, nobody wants this, but what are we doing is we're talking about you're taking and affecting people's lives by taking their jobs away. You're taking student athletes' opportunities away for the total education. Yes, bad things happen in this life. Crazy things happen. Cameron Smith had an open heart surgery. Nothing to do with COVID, but a COVID test saved his life. Linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings. So what are we doing? We made a quick decision in the Big Ten that was not based, I don't think, on all the information. I get everybody's doing the best they can. We all get it, Joe. But we're making these decisions that have ramifications, and there's cost or more cost. You know, what do you choose? There's risk or greater risk. And I happen to fall on the side. The greater risk is not to give yourself every opportunity to try to get this season in for the fall. Not because of money, although money's
important.
Money is very important because it affects people's lives. So I appreciate where you're coming from, and I feel very badly for the young man that had that issue, and I'm going to pray that he gets better and healthier. But because something bad happens to somebody else, that should not be the reason why we stop moving forward. You can never stop moving forward, because if every time something bad happens to an individual, and that individual wants other people to stop doing what you do, stop living life, stop playing sports, stop taking this risk, stop taking that risk, then we cease to live.
Yeah. No,
and I would never ask anybody who has lost somebody or somebody who's been devastated, who's lost their job. I would never wish that upon anybody else. And I would never tell them to stop doing what you think is best for you moving forward. That's why I say, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Okay, now the other thing.
With Tortorella, what's the responsibility of a coach?
He's got to answer the questions. The problem is, I don't know how quickly he comes into his press conference.
I'm sure they have a 10-minute cooling off.
Yeah, I think it needs to be longer with certain individuals, if you're asking me. Yeah. You know, I really do, because, you know, they just got knocked out of the playoffs. All right? Everybody's been through stress. Certain guys...
I don't think that was their elimination.
Well,
did they lose 4-1? I think they won 2. I don't remember.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I think for certain guys, there is an obligation that you have to speak, or, you know, you can be condescending or not cooperative. I think Marshawn Lynch is the perfect example of that. Mark Bavaro, tight end for the New York Giants, refused to talk. So when I was a player, I hated talking, and reporters loved to talk to me. And my locker was full when we lost a game. When we won a game, I might have had 2 guys over there because I'm not interesting when we win. When we lose, I'm interesting.
Yeah.
But I've always believed, and you can talk to anybody that I've ever dealt with in the media, I've always believed that there's an obligation, in my opinion. This is just my opinion and what rule I live by. There's an obligation to the fans. And the NFL actually has a rule that you have to appear. You know that from the Super Bowl press conferences. If you're asked to talk, you have to talk. There's a media segment open to the media, usually after meetings and before practice during like a lunch hour. You have access to the players. And you remember that when you were beat writer for the Dolphins.
Yep.
So there's an obligation, a league obligation, and how one conducts themselves. I think if I were the Blue Jackets, I'd say, look, Torts, I get it. I get that you're frustrated. I get that you think everybody's a hockey idiot.
Yep.
And I understand that.
Don't like the questions.
But you have an obligation to answer the questions. And I think people respect the guy that answers. Like Urban, like Coach Tress and Urban, total opposites.
Total opposites.
In press. Coach Tressel handled the press well. He took the questions, and he was very skilled at taking the answer to where he wanted it to go.
Yes, he was.
And that's fine. And Urban, if you asked him a question, and he wasn't always like this, by the way, at Florida, he was not even close to this. But if you asked Urban a question, that was awful. I mean, and he took it the way he wanted to go.
Yeah.
But at least they stood there and took the questions, all of them. And so I appreciate that. And I understand Torts' frustration. I really do, because you put all that time and effort, and you get knocked out. But there's a better way. I guess I'm saying there's a better way for him to handle it than he handles it now.
Yeah, so we'll see. I assume he'll be back next season. This is certainly not, anything that the club would look at and use against him in terms of his long-term viability as coach. He's done a nice job getting the Blue Jackets to a certain level. He's made them a perennial playoff team, and that is certainly a distinction from what they were before his arrival.
Sure.
I do think there are coaches who can get you to a certain level and then can't get you beyond that level, and I'm not sure if that's him or if that's just their talent level relative to the other teams around them. But it's certainly,
I don't know enough about hockey.
Yeah, I don't either, and it's certainly. I mean, there's a sameness to their exits. They finally got by the first round. They've done that twice, but they can't get by the second round. So I think Tampa's unquestionably a more talented team than they are. I want to go back to Ohio State's money situation. $60 million of OSU's total athletic revenue for the last year on record, 2019. $60 million of it was ticket revenue. Now, assuming they'll get some basketball ticket revenue, I don't know if we're going to play in empty arenas or not. I had the chance to talk to a basketball player this week. I said, when you watch an NBA game, is it weird? It's like, yeah, really weird. No fans. I said, what do you think of how that will impact you? He said, well, road games probably be easier. Won't have to battle the crowd. He said, but home games will be harder. Won't have the crowd to lift you.
Let's go back to your AAU days.
Yeah,
that's
then you got your parents.
It's elevated AAU, yeah.
Yeah, but 60 million ticket revenue, and that's why Clemson's playing, but they're not going to have a full stadium. That's why they have to furlough tons and tons of people. But they won't take as big a hit as the Big Ten because of the TV revenue. No, right, exactly. This stood out at me, and I just thought this was odd that Ohio State in 2020 had a $248 million, now as a university, not as an athletic department, had a $248 million surplus for the 2020 fiscal year. Thanks in part to $170 million in federal stimulus funds that Ohio State received from the CARES Act. So the difference between those two numbers is $78 million. Can you explain to me why, if you have a $78 million surplus, you're taking $170 million from the government? If a business did that, they'd get roasted.
What is the CARES Act?
The CARES Act
I'm
is
embarrassed to say I don't know.
The CARES Act is the stimulus that the government came up with the trillions and trillions they came up with, to help people get through COVID.
Okay.
They gave lots of money to businesses, lots of money to individuals. They gave $170 million to Ohio State.
I don't have it.
I thought they were a nonprofit. Like they got $78 million banked, and then they get $170 million in federal stimulus. That stuck out to me. I didn't know if you're a lot more savvy on some of that stuff than I am. Just thought I'd ask you.
Well, I know what the CARES Act is, and I don't understand that. I know that some schools that applied for that, Harvard coming to mind. Harvard is the benefactor of billions of dollars of their, what is that?
Endowment.
An endowment.
You got an endowment. They got a bunch of money back.
Yeah.
Most schools do.
Most schools do. And I think Harvard received some money from the CARES Act. If I'm not mistaken, Harvard gave that money back, if I remember the story correctly.
If anybody out there is watching on the stream, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and you have an explanation for that, let us know. Put it in the comment section.
I don't have an explanation of why they accepted that money. Maybe they were allowed. That's the first time I've seen it reported. I've heard of some other schools receiving that money, but those other schools, after a little bit of a public outcry, and I can only think of Harvard right now as the example, but I know there was more than one, or other companies that actually said, well, we don't need this. People need it more than we need it. So put it toward the people as opposed to this, because we do have $5 billion banked for a rainy day or for an endowment or whatever you use that for.
Let's turn to the NFL, but first a word about our friends at Willis Spangler Starling, the attorney firm that you need if you have any legal issues in your life, if you're trying to set up wills, a trust, an estate, something like that, trying to get through probate. If you have a personal injury issue, workers' compensation issue, whatever your legal need is, Willis Spangler Starling equipped to handle it with the highest integrity, character, and expertise. Willis Spangler Starling is located on Truman Boulevard in Hilliard. You can locate them online, find out more about their firm, read their helpful blog with lots of great instruction and a way for you to protect your legal rights and know your legal rights at willisattorneys.com. Willisattorneys.com. Again, the full name of the firm, Willis Spangler Starling, online, willisattorneys.com. Browns injury issues mounting for the Cleveland Browns. They lost Grant Delpit, who was kind of a steal where they got him in the draft, a nice defensive back out of LSU, torn Achilles out for the year.
It's just it's the way it is, right? And one of the beautiful things about the NFL, and maybe because of my training, because of my upbringing, because of where I've spent most of my life, that when somebody suffers something, bad luck, you feel terrible about it, right? But you're trained to move forward. I mean, you just are.
Well, you have to. You don't have any choice.
You have zero
NFL,
choice.
You're going to play the game whether he's there or not.
And that's why I talk about the total education of what sports brings. And one of the lessons that I've learned, if somebody has something unfortunate happen to them, you care for them, you feel for them, you support them, but you move forward. And I think that's my mindset throughout this whole COVID thing, and that's the mindset of an NFL player. It's got to be the mindset of the Browns, because the train doesn't stop.
Four of their top five DBs are out right now, and the pass offense, according to those allowed into practice, the few, looks bad. Can't get anything going. Is that a worrisome event?
Yeah, it's a worrisome event
because you got a new coaching staff, new coordinators, new offense, new everything.
And what I say last week when we were talking about Baker Mayfield, it's not that Baker Mayfield isn't talented. It's not that OBJ or David Njoku or Jarvis Landry, all these guys are very talented guys.
Austin Hooper too.
All these. Austin Hooper, who came over from, I believe, the Atlanta Falcons, who's a really good player, really good tight end. You kind of hope this stuff gets figured out in 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, whenever we're kicking off. But this is not a surprise, because when you eliminate all your learning curve, which were the OTAs, you eliminate preseason games to get better timing, because you cannot simulate preseason games in practice, and you cannot simulate regular season games in preseason games. So the natural evolution of picking up a new offense has been hindered because of the situation that we're dealing with. And that's why I said, when I'm looking at the NFL this year, I think teams that have had the same offense or the same coordinator are going to have an advantage. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win a game. They're going to have an advantage. And when you look at Baker Mayfield, it's just, and you so rightfully pointed out to us on Monday, and we talked about this. You had Hugh Jackson's offense his rookie year.
Mhm.
You had Freddie Kitchens' offense his second year, and now you have brand new terminology and a new offense his third year. And not only does that affect Baker Mayfield, it affects OBJ, Njoku, Hooper, Nick Chubb, all your skilled players. The offensive line will be able to pick it up because things kind of are pretty similar. But for the receivers and the quarterback, it's just learning a new language and getting timing in a new offense and when he wants the ball released or what type of offense. Is it a play action? Is it a drop back? Is it a quick game? Is it the long game? What are we doing here? And it takes a while to develop that chemistry. And that chemistry, a lot of those kinks are worked out through OTAs in preseason. Well, when you eliminate that, that's a reason why the pass offense, according to the people that have been able to attend the Browns practice, may be struggling at this point.
Yeah, we're going to get to the Bengals where the reviews on Joe Burrow are decidedly different. First, a reminder about our official coffee, Hemisphere Coffee Roasters Coffee. Delicious coffee, sourced direct from growers throughout the world. Indonesia, Thailand, Ethiopia. Wonderful, wonderful company. They do great things for the growers in their local communities, and you get the best coffee that you can get. Mr. Spielman approves of the coffee, drinks it every morning.
Well, there's a covert coffee war now that's full blown in the house.
You put any in your drawers, any of your K-cups in your drawers? Keep it away from your lovely wife?
I've discovered that she has taken the first course of aggressiveness against me. She strategically, in the middle of the night, I'm convinced of this, went through the boxes, the 2 boxes.
Yeah, you had 2 boxes of K-cups.
Pulled out all the Hunter's Blend from those boxes, denying me Hunter's Blend. And then I found it by accident because I don't know. We moved. I still don't know where anything is. So I looked through every drawer, and I conveniently find all the Hunter's Blend tucked away in hiding for her pleasure,
archived somewhere.
Yes, and so there's going to be a little bit of an issue, but she thinks that I don't know this.
Now the cat's out of the bag.
Oh, well, it is. I don't know if she's watching or not.
She's always watching.
Usually she is, but I got to tell you, Care, you drew first blood.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched Rambo lately or not, but you drew first blood, sir. It's on, Care. It is on. So when you're going to ask me something that you need and you're looking for it and you can't find it, hey, maybe it's with the Hunter's Blend that you confiscated.
Hopefully it won't be as explosive as Rambo. You can get your own Hunter's Blend, your Jamaica Me Crazy, your favorite cup, however you want it, light, medium, dark roast, K-cups, or in beans. They'll do whatever you want. HemisphereCoffeeRoasters.com is the website. You get 15% off when you use the promo code We Tackle Life. It's scrolling along the bottom of the podcast right now as we speak. One last thing on the Browns. The over-unders are out from Vegas on number of win totals for teams. You establish a number, and you bet they're either going to win more games or less games. The number on the Browns is 8.5.
That's what I thought it was.
8.5. Well, they won 9 2 years ago, didn't they? Or were they 8-8? I think they won 9 2 years ago.
I'm taking the under.
I'm taking the under. They have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL.
Still taking the under.
Yeah, I'm taking the under too. History. Too many years. 17 straight years, no playoffs.
Too many questions on defense still. And
secondary issues.
Secondary issues, new offense.
2 rookies on the O-line right now. Jedrick Wills at left tackle. We don't know. He's a right tackle in college.
Yeah, I'm not confident. I was more confident last year. Maybe this is good. Maybe because I'm not confident, they'll do the opposite.
Maybe so.
I was more confident last year than I was this year. I do think, offensively they can get it together because they have really good.
We didn't even mention Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt.
Well, I was going to talk about Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb is, and I know you were a big fan of Nick Chubb coming out, and kudos to you for making that call. But Nick Chubb is tremendous, and then you have Kareem Hunt. So there's a 1-2 combination that there are not many better in the league. In fact, if I had to pick 2 running backs, I can't just pick one, but I had to pick 2 as a tandem. Those would probably be my first round draft pick.
Yeah, those
Those two
guys are
guys.
really solid.
So
So you picked the under at 8.5 on the Browns. All right. Would you care to guess what the Bengals over under
6.5.
It's actually 5.5. Now they won 2 games last year, Mr. Spielman. 2. So at 5.5, they'd have to improve 4 wins. But let me give you one other stat. They were 0-8 in one possession games. Now, a one possession game can be a deceiving stat.
Yeah.
Because you could kick a field goal at the end to go from 10 down to 7 down. Hence, it's a one possession game.
Sure.
It really wasn't. But 0-8 still. They didn't win any games that they had a reasonable chance of winning.
I did a little informal study last year of over the years, and last year was included, I think, the year before. So about 80% of that games I do, and I tell everybody this, they come down to the fourth quarter. Had an interesting conversation with Mike Zimmer, and I make this point every year, and I've always known it. I just didn't phrase it like Mike Zimmer. For those of you who don't know, Mike Zimmer is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. So in a production meeting, I just asked them philosophy, all that, and their whole thing is for the Vikings, and it's true for the NFL. Because once he told me this, Bruce, I would ask this question in production meetings of other head coaches. Whoever wins the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter usually win the game. And Mike Zimmer believes in that so much that their Sunday practice, which was canceled because of the false positive tests coming out of that lab out of New Jersey on Sunday, that practice was only for the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. So everything was simulated to the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. So I get what you're talking about, those one possession games, because that's why people ask me, what do I enjoy more, doing college football or the NFL? I enjoy the NFL because every game is good. Now, bad news out of Bengals camp. I didn't know if you knew this, but show prep with you is hit or miss.
It's hit or miss.
But AJ Green has not practiced and has had injury issues.
I've not heard that.
Well,
I've
of
heard
course
that
not.
AJ Green. I've heard that Tyler Boyd and Joe Burrow have struck a nice relationship, and that AJ Green was going to be fine.
Yeah, he's not practicing, and wide receivers, if everything isn't feeling right, if their towel's crooked, if their socks are wrong, if their tights are bunched, or whatever the case may be.
This may be an overstatement.
Yeah, they're a little bit of high maintenance. I mean, we can all agree with that, right? I hope
generally true, yes.
Yes. So I wouldn't be concerned, but AJ Green has only played 9 games since 2018. And so with him not practicing, and if it's an issue, and I think it's a leg issue, I'm not for certain, but I know he's not practicing. So that's of concern. And if AJ Green isn't 100% and John Ross isn't 100%, again, we're being stuck with the Bengals. The Bengals can be good and Joe Burrow can be good, but to get the 6.5 number, because if you're counting on a rookie quarterback, 5.5, you're counting on a rookie quarterback to carry you to the promised land. That rarely happens, especially if you're a team that won 2 games the previous year. It's not like they won 9 games last year. They won 2 games.
No, they did not.
So,
yes, John Ross is back at practice.
All right, what's that other headline
according to Cincy Jungle, AJ Green still sidelined. Look at you trolling the NFL headlines. By the way,
NFL, I try to take pride in preparing for the podcast.
I appreciate it very much. Keep doing the heavy lifting.
That's good stuff, man.
Now, Richard Deitch of The Athletic is reporting that you have a new partner on NFL games. Is there anything you can say about that? Can you confirm, deny? He says it's Kevin Kugler. I don't want to get you in a jackpot.
Well,
it's your partner.
I prefer to wait till Fox makes the announcement.
Okay.
I've worked with Kevin in the past, 1 or 2 games. Kevin is the lead voice on the Big Ten Network. Kevin is the lead voice on Westwood One, NFL Sunday Night Football on the radio. He is a great guy, strong Christian guy. Not that has anything to do with his job, but
make you guys a good fit.
What I know about Kevin, and it's really worked hard. So if he does get that opportunity, I am happy for him. and I'm happy for me because he's very good at what he does. And the times that we worked together, we've had great chemistry, and I've talked to 3 different guys that are in the running for that job, and I've worked with all 3. And whoever they pick, if that turns out to be true, that report, I am happy because with all 3 guys, whether the first time I did a game with them, and I talked to all 3 about it, and I remember having this specific conversation in the airport after the game, that it's felt like we've worked together for a long time. And so, and that's not a credit to me at all. It's a credit to them on how good they are. And being an analyst is easy. Being a play-by-play guy and a good play-by-play guy, it doesn't seem like it's difficult, because when you watch a game, they make it sound so easy, and it's unbelievably challenging. And to be able to focus on your job and still listen, to have you understand this because you've been in the media. You're focusing on your job, and you're also listening to a producer in your ear about what tease is coming up next, and also listening to what I say, so that as a play-by-play guy, I might be able to enhance that point with a little tidbit that I have, where I don't have to listen to the producer. I obviously listen to my play-by-play guy, or my sideline person, so I can either add to or enhance, or at the very minimum, acknowledge what that person said. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The voice is in your head. If you're
It's
a play-by-play guy, you got the truck, you got you.
unbelievable.
Yeah, you got to think about what you got coming up.
You got your statistician to your left, you got your spotter to your right,
you got your sponsor reads, your all this stuff. Richard Deitch also reports that Laura Oakman is the sideline reporter on that crew. I believe last year, wasn't it? Shannon Spake. Can you comment on the sideline reporter? Do you know who your sideline reporter is?
I think Fox is going to come out with an official announcement. I can say this about Shannon. If she's not my sideline reporter, I worked with Shannon at ESPN, and I've worked with her the last 2 or 3 years at Fox. She is a hustler. She takes pride in her job. She welcomes feedback, and she gives feedback. And she has made me a better analyst, and I hope I've made her a better sideline reporter. So if she is going to another team, I would say that team is very lucky. Laura, I know, have not worked with Laura, but everything I've heard about Laura, and most people that reach the NFL are very good at what
she's done it a long time. She's very stood the test of time.
I know that Laura also has a little business on the side that helps female broadcasters grow in the business. And so she has a tremendous reputation. So if I work with either of them, I'll be very pleased, because I know that they're pros. And so I'm happy to be a part of any team. And for me, like being an analyst for Fox NFL is a privilege, and I don't take it for granted. And I consider myself lucky, and I trust, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a company guy, I trust those people to put the personnel in place for everybody to be successful, no matter who that personnel is.
Good job navigating that quite
It's
tactfully
almost
without
like
saying anything. Yeah, good job, Tress. Speaking of working with everyone collegially, that's the specialty of our friends at AUIinfo.com. You see their banner on the laptop, AUI. At this time where everybody's in open enrollment and health insurance switching is a hot topic, you as a business owner have the opportunity to get better health insurance for your employees than you currently have. But you don't have time to research it, look at costs, look at benefits, look at copays, look at all those intricacies. But AUI Info knows that information, and they're happy to share it with you as you formulate the best way to attract the best employees to your company. Benefits is a big part of that, and AUI Info can help you structure the best benefits for your employees. Also, very possibly help you with cost. Also, very possibly add to the entire picture of your business by giving you an HR expert to draw upon. That's Julie at auiinfo.com. So get with Chrissy, get with Julie, get with Steve, get with the good folks at auiinfo.com by clicking on it, auiinfo.com. They're located in Akron, but they're licensed to work with any business in the state of Ohio. auiinfo.com. Great people. Had the chance to have dinner with Steve and Chrissy, as I said, on Monday's podcast at the end of last weekend. Really, really delightful people. Love hearing their story and hearing their passion for people. So give them a chance to help you as you build a family at your business with your employees. auiinfo.com, auiinfo.com. All right, Joe Burrow's getting rave reviews from CJ Uzama because yesterday in a drill, they're going to have the day off today. They needed the scenario was the offense needed to score to win a game. So they needed a touchdown to win the game. And Uzama said, if we didn't score, the defense was going to be chirping at us for 36 hours. And he said, I didn't want to hear it. So Burrow's running a must-score drill, and they face a 4th and 6 at the 27. And Burrow goes for it all and lobs it over Jesse Bates, and I forget who the corner was, to Auden Tate for the touchdown. And Uzama raved not only about the throw, but about how Burrow is making checks that he didn't expect a rookie quarterback to be able to make at this juncture of training camp. How much stock should we put in Joe Burrow's seamless assimilation to the NFL from what has so far been glowing reviews from everybody who's watched him and the players who play with him?
Well, I think that's a good, positive sign. I mean, at least you're hearing that, and you're not hearing negative stuff, which can be possible. And I think when you get Joe, you know you're going to get a guy that mentally can pick up what you're trying to achieve, and you know that you're picking up physically because of the vast improvement that he made over year one. And so Patrick Mahomes is like that. I mean, there's certain guys, Bruce, that you draft that just get it, and the quarterback position is so challenging. I'd venture to say that it's more challenging mentally to play the position than it is physically.
And
quarterbacks, quarterbacks. And so, I mean, I put stock into it, but I also say it hasn't been for real yet. And until I see it for real, I'm going to be skeptical. And that's not personal. That's with every quarterback that's ever played the game in the NFL.
We'll see. Cincinnati Bengals, I would keep my eye on him. If A.J. Green gets back and he's got A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd, a healthy Joe Mixon, maybe John Ross can finally contribute. I think John Ross, he was overdrafted at 9.
Sure.
But as a number 3, that guy can cause you some trouble.
You have to account for him on the field because of the long ball. And so, and Zach, I think Zach Taylor, we don't talk about him enough. We talk about the Browns head coaches certainly at length. So I think Zach was humbled last year. I think Zach is very bright. I think he's learning how to be a play caller and a head coach. So not only are we looking at the improvement of the Bengals, but I think we have to look at the improvement of Zach Taylor as a head coach and see where that goes, because that certainly, as you know, is just as important for the Bengals to improve on the 2 wins that they had last year, and also on the 1-possession games. Some of those 1-possession games, you're correct. You're very correct in saying that they're skewed, but others are, you find a way to win, right?
Yeah, and you and I have remarked before about Andy Dalton, that Andy Dalton was the kind of quarterback who could win you a game, but he could also lose you a game. And he needed a lot of help to win.
Good enough to keep both teams in it.
Good enough to keep both teams in it. Joe Burrow, I labeled Andy Dalton early last year. Then the more you saw Joe Burrow, the more you saw his development combined with his clear hunger to get better and competitive nature. I think I was dead wrong on that, and I think that he has
What'd you say?
I said I was dead wrong on that, and I think he's got a chance. I felt good about Baker Mayfield coming to the Browns, a losing culture with a swagger that he has. I feel good about Joe Burrow coming to the Bengals, a losing culture, not as losing, but a losing culture with the swagger he has. I think both organizations are challenged in the front office for slightly different reasons. But I've said before, the thing that intrigues me about Burrow and Baker Mayfield is that the Battle of Ohio had ceased to be a nothing game, a non-game, a no-buzz game.
Cool.
It's back when I was younger and Paul Brown was with the Bengals. That was a Ohio State-Michigan game. That was twice a year, big-time, emotional, lots of attention game, and I would love it to get back to that.
Even when I was playing it, and who could forget Sam White grabbing the PA mic on the sidelines and told the fans, be more classy or whatever.
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
You don't live in Cleveland.
And that was not during a Browns game. The oddity of that was, I think it was during a Seahawks game, and there was a bad call, and fans were throwing stuff on the field. And he's like, the next person, see somebody throwing on, get out of there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can I just make one observation about the difference between Baker Mayfield and Joe Burrow? Again, I'm a fan of both guys, but if I was making an observation, I think with Baker, because of the chip on his shoulder, Baker came into the league telling everybody how good he is. Wanting people to know. I think Joe comes into the league with that same confidence, but he doesn't feel the need to tell people how good he is. Does that make sense to you? Because I always get concerned when people start telling me how good they are.
Yeah, me too. And Baker's been humble. We'll see if Joe gets humble, but I think he's come in with the right kind of attitude, being quiet and yet impressive.
Extremely confident.
No doubt about it. All right, if you listen to our podcast, you know that we end every podcast with a faith portion of the podcast. That is our motivation for doing it, and we hope that you enjoy it. We hope you'll listen to it, and we hope you'll give us feedback on it via email, spielmanhooleypodcast@gmail.com, via Twitter @WeTackle. Also, you can hit us with a Facebook post. We'd love to hear from you, and I will pass to you. You want to start us today?
So I had a acquaintance friend, somebody I've known from a long time, pass away this week of cancer. No surprise there. I have another acquaintance that's, waiting for a diagnosis. And, it just doesn't stop. And I get that. And that's, unfortunately, dying is part of living. And we all know that. So I was thinking about the families, and I've experienced both, waiting for a diagnosis and have somebody close pass away, and how overwhelming that can be. So I ran across this. I don't know the author, but he says this. Now, when problems surround us and we feel overwhelmed by them, we all would like to escape them, if it is only for a little while. When we turn our problems over to God, we can escape. Just as David wrote, though I walk in the midst of the trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the anger of my foes. With your right hand you save me. Psalms 138:7. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his tabernacle and set me high upon a rock. Psalms 27:5. From Isaiah. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You'll be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose water never fails. Isaiah 58:11. What is impossible with men is possible with God. Luke 18:27. For those of you out there that are dealing with something that seems so overwhelming, that seems like I can't continue on with this, just pray that God will sustain you and that God will lift you up, and you will be amazed at how you're able to rise again. There were times where I felt so defeated. There were times where I felt so scared. There were times where I was embarrassingly weak. And I cannot emphasize enough that I could not come back. I could not feel joy again. I could not feel happiness again. I could not feel peace again. Not be absent of fear again. Without trusting God, without having that faith when everything in the world on the secular side is telling you that you've been abandoned. You're not abandoned. And I'm just encourage you to trust that, yes, there are storms and waves crashing or trials and tribulations, however you want to describe it. Just hang on. Just hang on. You got this. God will lift you up again. I promise. He promises, more importantly.
Yeah, it's interesting. You and I often talk about how what you're going to talk about and what I'm going to talk about intersect. I had the chance to share this verse with a friend the other night. 1 Peter 5:6, humble yourselves under God's mighty hand, and in due time he will lift you up. I have reflected on that verse at times of adversity in my life. Humble yourselves. Okay, how do you humble yourself? Well, you said pray. Prayer indicates a submission to God's authority in your life. It is a way of yielding and saying, I realize I'm not in charge. I'm coming to you. I'm imploring you. I'm casting myself as secondary to your will in my life. So that's humbling yourself. You acknowledge that God has the mighty hand, that he is omnipresent, that he is omniscient, he's everywhere, he's in charge of everything. You acknowledge that he may lift you up, that he has the power to lift you up, and it will happen in due time. Not in your time, but in due time. So often we want it to happen in our time, but God's purposes are beyond our comprehension in the moment. In the moment, it's beyond our comprehension. Why don't you fix this? I went through a really wrenching emotional time in my life 24, 25 years ago. And I was like, why won't you fix this? Like, I want to fix it. I want you to fix this. And I know it's your will to fix this. Why won't you fix it? Well, he had a purpose in it. And it was an awesome purpose that I'm glad I didn't miss. I understand the purpose in hindsight, and I understand the benefit of waiting for him to lift me up in due time. When you're losing a loved one, there's no, sometimes, well, there's no good in it. And you're right. There's no good in it. Like, taking a mother away from her children, taking a father away from their children, whatever.
Especially unjustly.
Yeah, it's just very hard, nonsensical, unfair, any word you want to think of. But we live by faith, which is our attitude in the moment, and we live by hope, which is our attitude in the future. Faith is what God's done for us already by sending his son to die for us on the cross, giving us the promise of eternal life with him. And hope is that promise that we know it's going to come true sometime. So I find so much comfort in these times of trial, tribulation, uncertainty, unknown in the Bible, because I find the Bible to be the living, breathing word of God, that it can minister to me. Some days I'll read a chapter of something and it doesn't really speak to me. The next day, the next week, the next year, the next month, I'll read the exact same chapter and it's like the words are seared right into my heart. That's why I say the Bible is the only book that can change your life every time you pick it up.
Just one point on encouraging people, and this doesn't just go for people that are dealing with certain issues, but on encouraging people. I send out a Bible verse. I think you know this too. A group of people every day, and it's like 18 different groups. So sometimes it's hard to keep track of